This has been too long in the making, honestly. I don't like to let replay sit this long because you could have been watching this and improving the entire time. But it is what it is. Unfortunate circumstances, I guess you could say. Been a bit busy, I apologize. But let's get into this. We're going to do both of the VODs you sent me today. So hopefully this isn't a game where you have somebody who's kind of like throwing the game or making it impossible to play. There's almost always something you can do more to kind of like make sure your team could have won the game. Sometimes it's stupid things like something I can't really coach, like just click more heads, lol, if you're playing like something like Widowmaker, or just hit more of your shots. That's not really a critique that you want to necessarily be giving though, because there's not a ton. You just have to practice in order to hit more shots, and sometimes there's a limit to how good you can really be, right? So let's hope that that's not the case here. I have done reviews where there's just like throwers and it's like you couldn't have done more. But we're just gonna do the same dry run through that is the first time that I've seen it, so. Okay, so you guys are taking good space. You have one on card. That's good. That's good. This would be definitely one of those situations where it's like, lol, just hit more shots, because you're not cleaning up any of the kills here. So it's becoming increasingly difficult for your team to continue the momentum that they took out of the gate, just because you're not hitting any shots. So let's start looking at what you could have maybe done to potentially increase the number of shots you could have hit. Maybe good positioning could have been the solution here, right? So we come out of the gate, we instantly come out with some good picks, and we push the cart easily around the corner, and we take a lot of space early on. So something that your tanks could have done, of course, is they could have taken more space as the cart moved up, and definitely exerted more of their damage dealing abilities. Reinhardt could have swung on a few people, but he definitely hard shielded so that you had the free range to shoot at whoever you wanted. The problem was you weren't able to really land any of the shots. So something that I would probably note is that you spent a decent amount of time, and we can go back and see exactly how much time you spent, but you spent a decent amount of time, you're F9? F8, I'm stupid. You spent a decent amount of time shooting at Hammond. Now, one of the tricks with Hammond, or one of the traps with Hammond rather, is that he is always going to be in positions that make him seem punishable, but oftentimes you're not going to want to actually punish him. He has 600 health, adaptive shields, and great mobility that makes him extremely difficult to hit for some, like if you're playing a Hanzo and he's moving at 1,000 miles per hour, you kind of predicting that trajectory and getting that arrow on point sometimes isn't always the easiest thing, especially when he's moving horizontally. So focusing down Hammond can be a little bit of a trap in that way, where he's hard to hit, he has a lot of health, and he has a lot of escape abilities as well as shielding, so you don't really want to be spending your time focusing him down. So this Hammond is doing just that. He's also getting a mercy pocket from above, so if we start looking at who you could have been shooting at here instead of shooting at the Hammond, I think you can start to see a few easier targets. There's 3 very elusive people here on your screen, and I mean, they're not all on your, like, you're not looking at them, but they're all within your field of kind of like, you could just look left and right and see them. But you have a Hammond, a Mercy, and a Genji, 3 targets who are fairly difficult to hit if your mechanics aren't, you're not comfortable with your mechanics. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'll be right back, I apologize. Sorry about that. Hopefully the waiting music was pleasant. I'll insert waiting music in post. Okay, so on your screen or within your peripheral vision, within your range of, motion, you have 3 difficult to hit targets in Mercy, Genji, and Ball. Mercy can be a semi-predictable target to hit sometimes. When she starts getting into her glides and into some of her more locked animations, she can be easy to hit, but you're constantly focusing, I think, we'll watch this back, but you're focusing more on the Ball, the Mercy, and the Genji than you are on these 2 more stable, easy to hit hitboxes here. And at some point you almost get the McCree down low. You manage to get him in your reticle at some point and hit him with the Stormbow, but you wind up getting CC'd. So this is, I think, one of those situations where, yeah, positioning would probably help your mechanics, because you're standing in choke where the enemies can break line of sight and you're safely behind your tanks, but nobody on your team right now is actually going on any real flanks, I don't think. Oh no, you have a Genji out there, okay. So, the Genji is the only one on the off angle. You have your Zarya is dead to the McCree, okay. And you're being engaged on by the Ball. Okay, well, you're not. Your Mercy is, but they're fairly close to you. Okay, so you're spending your time shooting down this Ball again, shooting at the Genji. You break line of sight. This is fine. I think going on a soft flank here through the corridor on the left-hand side would probably be one of your better options. This would allow you to stay safe and have line of sight to your supports, rotate back to your team fairly easy, and kind of get an angle that nobody else really has right now, and help out your Genji in the backline there. There's nobody on your team who really wants to be diving with the Genji. Lucio could go in, but there's no real reason for him to when he has a Rhyme. Then, when he has a Rhyme that he wants to be kind of like moving around and stuff like that. Oops, okay. So kind of examining who's on the enemy team and who's easier to hit is going to be vital in making these fights easier to carry through. So you get this McCree low, but you get pile drove. He pile drives you. And then by this point, the Orisa is back, and your team has gotten no significant picks, while the enemy team has been able to kite around your damage, break line of sight, and they've got a pick, I think, what was it, onto your Zarya. That's right, the McCree got a pick on the Zarya. I think they might have gotten a pick onto your Mercy, potentially, when they dove her, but I wasn't really looking at that too closely. Good kill. Good job not dying there. Your team tried to come save you a little bit, so just be a little bit careful of that positioning. Your team is now taking space. Again, you're playing very safely behind the shield, which is not always it's not a bad thing, right? I'm never gonna really say like, oh, don't play behind the shield. But I am gonna say that if your team isn't getting kills, you need to start taking matters into your own hand. And yes, small things like this. Take high grounds, take soft flanks, move around the angles at least to try to put pressure on the enemies. Your tanks are finally moving forward, but there's an Ana behind you. No, Ana in front of you. So you've been farming Dragon pretty quickly, which is good. Okay, you go after the Dragon because he's important. Good killing the Dragon. Pete saved you there. It's a combo effort. Good headshots. Or good headshots. Yeah, see, so that right there is the perfect kind of example of why you don't always want to be focusing down Ball, because you just threw full Stormbow into him, something you could have used to break the shield right here, and he just left perfectly fine because he had adaptive shields and he rolled away, right? So he's going to go get healed up, get health packs, whatever he needs to re-engage on your team, and you got essentially no value out of it because half the damage you did was done to shield, which doesn't even give you ult charge. So It's good to focus him if he's causing a lot of issues. As Hanzo, you can kind of do a good job of bursting him down, but if you find that nobody on your team is focusing him at the same time as you, or if you don't have any stun to really be punishing him, you have to start to be aware that him is not someone as a DPS that you can really take on your own. You really need to be like a Doomfist, Mei, or McCree to be able to do that properly. And even when you're a McCree, you have to hit things perfectly in order to be able to take out the him. You either have to hit, 5 or 6 headshots on him when you take into account adaptive shields, or you have to perfectly, fan, flash, and then fan again without him using his adaptive shields in order to be able to take him down. So Hammond is not someone that you can take down on your own. Similar to Bastion, you need a team effort. So if you're finding that you're in games and Hammonds are rolling around and kind of demanding too much attention from you, and you're not able to kill them and they keep getting away, it's kind of a sign that you need to leave them alone and let them do what they will and take down the rest of the team. There's a philosophy when you're playing into good Pharahs. There's 2 ways to defeat a Pharah. You either can take her out of the sky, or you could take advantage of the fact that the enemy team is missing 1 person on the ground. So on the ground, they're fighting a 5v6. As long as you can take a fight fast enough that the Pharah can't get any real value, you can win the fight on the ground before the Pharah has a chance to do anything, and therefore just win the fight overall, because then the Pharah will be without her team. So it's similar with Ball. Ball is always rolling around, so his team is often without that 6-person support. If you can beat the enemy team before they get a chance to get value out of their Ball, then their Ball will inevitably lose them the game. They'll start complaining about how they don't have anybody to actually peel for them, or anybody to actually do anything to help them, and oh my god, why is this person on Ball? They suck. Ball's a terrible character, blah blah blah. And that's how you could dismantle a team with Ball in a different way without having a bunch of stun characters to just lock him down, but yeah, here you would have Stormbow to break through the shield. Then you would have been able to break through this. This shield would have never even been able to come up, because you probably would have killed Orisa, or you would have been able to break through and just deal the additional damage. You would have been able to follow up better. This Orisa is living within inches of her life. Jesus Christ. So I can see why you would say, even just now, like it hasn't been long into the game, I can see why you would say you couldn't have done, or you don't think you could have done more in this game, because honestly, you're hitting all of your shots, you're playing safe positioning, but you're not exerting your energy onto the enemy team. Okay, here we go. Here's a flank. Let's see what you do with it. I think you're planning on using your dragon to split the team and potentially get a pick on the supports. Okay. Okay, so that flank didn't work out, unfortunately. I think that flank, part of the reason that it didn't work out was because it was a hard flank. So the difference between soft flanks and hard flanks are that on soft flanks you have easy rotations back to your team, and the chance for your team to be able to close the distance on you in order to save you without having to push into the enemy team, right? So there you went on a hard flank where your team had no way of actually getting to you unless they just walked past the enemy team, and most people aren't going to do that to save you. So the main reason that hard flanks aren't going to be kind of warranted here is because your tanks aren't playing very aggressive. We saw that in the very beginning where your Rein is just holding shield and slowly just letting you poke at the enemy team. Your tanks don't want to use their damage abilities in order to create space. They want to use their defensive abilities in order to protect you. They're basically pocketing and playing around you. But what tends to happen is the enemy team then has more space to work with than you would want them to. They can kind of establish ground a little bit better, and it really depends on you to hit every shot in order for you to win. So you've been doing a good job of hitting most of your shots, farming up Dragon, throwing them into spaces that split, but your teams aren't pushing into the splits because your tanks aren't pushing into the splits, right? So you need to start going on these soft flanks where your supports don't have to worry about you dying, right? Your supports can still save you, or they don't have to go all the way out of their way to save your life. But you also won't depend on your tank's ability to push forward, because your tanks are playing so far back that the enemy is pushed farther forward than they may want to be. You need to take advantage of that by going on these soft flanks. So another soft flank here would be to, instead of going all the way around, once your team has taken the space in this courtyard area, you want to, what does this even mean? I should learn this. This should be engine room or something. I don't actually know a call out for this room, but I'm gonna call this engine room for now because these looks like little furnace engines or something like that. But a soft flank here would do you a lot of good. It would allow you to peek to here. You'll still have your leap to get back to this area over here as long as you walk in. It would give you a good line of sight on the people who are crossing back and forth, and the Orisa is continuously backing up into that area, so you would get the ability to peek past her shield. So those soft flanks like that are really going to allow you to kind of exert your energy onto the enemy team without the dependency on tanks, while not stretching your supports too thin, right? It's gonna give you everything you want, but it's not gonna be good for every game, because there's gonna be some games where the enemies are running through your tanks and the tanks just need some damage to be behind them, but you've already tried to be the damage behind them. You can't do that with this composition right now, not with against this team. So you need to start moving in front of you, or to the side of your tanks, and exerting energies from different angles. And I think part of the reason that you can't be that damage behind your shield is because you're running with a Genji, and Genji isn't shield break. He doesn't stand behind the tanks as well. If you had a McCree along with you, I think you'd be burning through that Orisa shield much easier and dealing damage straight into the thick of the enemy team, getting into their health pool rather than their shields. But largely it just was, I think, you're playing a solid game. You're just not carrying the way your team is potentially allowing you to carry, right? There's some players who play this kind of passive style that it's a dependency. They depend on their DPS, they depend on their supports to get them through, sure, but they're also giving you the resources to do it, right? That Ryan was giving you in the beginning his full 1600 health shield right in front of you to try to protect you, enable you to do as much as you possibly can. You're on defense, wait. And your supports were always near you, able to heal you up. It's just when your team finally lost the shield war and eventually broke down, there was not much else you can do. Your tanks weren't dealing enough damage, and your other DPS was a Genji, so he has to get value from assassinations more than anything. He's not going to get value out of a team that's playing passively because he needs to play aggressively. If he plays passively, then he at least needs a nano in order to pop blade and pop off with nano blade. Because then if he's playing passively, he just has to poke from different angles. Like I was saying, those off angles, he has to, you know, double jump above the shield and try to get some value really quick. Try to farm that blade up and then get nano blade and farm and play that way. But if he's not getting nano blade, then he's not getting real value as Genji because he can't play aggressive with this tank lineup. So this is the same thing that I was saying before, where your tanks are just very passive. And I don't think it's both of your tanks. I do think your Orisa, or your Orisa / Zarya, I think they were playing Zarya earlier, is a little bit more aggressive than the Reinhardt, but they're certainly not that much more aggressive. So this is a decent angle. It's letting you finally hit into the thick of the enemy. The Orisa's low. Fortunately, you can't kill her. But if you spend more time in these areas where you're still safe, they can't really pressure you out. That's a good headshot. Yeah, but if you spend more time in that area, you'll just get more value, because you need to stop shooting into shields here. And this hard flank is going to put a lot more pressure on your mechanical ability because it requires you to base. So when you go on flanks, two things, or yes, there's two things that happen, but they can kind of be summarized as one thing. But you're abandoning your team for a short time. You're saying, fight this 5v6 because I will go on a flank that will get me more value than we could have gotten if I took the fight as a 6v6, right? So when you go on a flank, effectively what you're looking to do is get one free pick and win a duel, because after you get a pick, it's likely that somebody will notice you and turn to fight you, sometimes the entire team if they're coordinated enough. But if you can't get these picks, if you can't get the free pick, right, because you went on a flank before and you couldn't get the free pick, then you're always going to go into that duel state, which is always a 50-50. If you get the free pick at least, then you've at least neutralized the value, the negative return potential of a flank if you get the free pick, right? This Hanzo doesn't notice you, he's fairly easy to hit, that is a free pick. But if you miss that free pick, then you are essentially throwing the fight, because you've you've forsaken your team to a 5v6 while you say, oh, don't worry, I'm good. So this one worked out. This was great. You got the 2 picks that you needed. One of them was with an ult, which is perfectly fine because ults win fights, and this is a good way to win a fight with an ult. As long as you win a fight, it's all okay. He said, knowing that that's not entirely true. Mines are gonna come out. Enemy team has so many ults right now, and so little space to move. Good kills, good kills. So you already have Dragon again. Good job on that Mercy. I would have lost that. You spend a lot of time again on that ball, trying to focus him down, when there's characters like Widow who have great pick potential that are easier to hit, easier to finish. I can understand if in the chaos of the fight too, you lose track of where people are coming from. That's something that you can't just accept. However, you can't just say like, oh, I didn't know where the Widow was, so I couldn't, you know, go finish her. You have to start figuring out where people want to be, where they are going to be based off of respawn timers, and where, you know, where you need to at least be looking for to protect your support. So that Widow has been going into the same doorway every time. I could actually, let's go over to the doorway just so that I make sure that you know what I'm talking about. She's been using this angle. She's used it 3 times now. And you could have used that information of her already being there twice to then go collapse on her, or prepare for her to be there at least, because that's an easier target to finish than the Hammond. And she's also has big pick potential, right? She can headshot any one of you and just swing the fight by just randomly clicking heads. So finally, you lose a fight. It's almost inevitable with the amount of ultimates that were being stacked up and the way they were being stacked up, but I think it was maybe avoidable just because looking at it, you have 2 ults left over, but you can't depend on randoms to be able to carry you to your higher ranks, right? You have to be able to take matters into your own hand, and this is one of those games that determines whether or not, let's say if you're in Platinum right now, it determines whether you're a Platinum player or you're a Diamond player. Because your ability to use those flanks, have better positioning, hit more shots will determine who can actually win this game. So your team pops 3 ults, gets no value out of any of them. Unfortunate. Coming back with Dragon, good for a recontest. This game is close. You could potentially win this one for all I know. I think the Dragon was a little bit too on them. You needed to move it like in between them and the objective, lead them a little bit more. Okay, so all in all, not a bad game. I think it's one of those ones that you can live with knowing that you played a good game and try to move on to the next one. I think if you wanted to try to win a game like this, like I said, you want to be paying more attention to what value your team is getting, what they're doing good, and how you could take advantage of that, right? So your tanks are holding strong, they're staying alive for a long time, and the enemy team only has 1 flimsy Orisa shield. So let's either focus on breaking that or focus on going on off angles once her shield is set down because she has a stagnant shield. Take advantage of the things that you can, and focus on what is good that's happening in the game, right? I can understand if you're going into that game and you're feeling frustrated because you're losing fights that you shouldn't lose. You got full held on first point basically, and you don't feel like your team was getting a lot of value. But if you wind up getting upset because of those things, then you're going to wind up hitting a lot of roadblocks that you don't need to hit, right? You need to focus on climbing and think about the game more in a big picture type of way, right? It's not about this one game. It's not about what your teammates are doing. It's not about how you could be winning this game if, you know, everything worked out better, or if the cookie crumbled the right way, or if you had better randoms. It's about what you could do and what you see in this game, and what you can get out of it to improve. So I'm going to do the other one as well, like I was saying, but for now I'm going to take a quick break, eat some food, and